A slight bristling from Jonathon Lis there when we're talking about Archbishop Justin Welby, who is of course a member of the House of Lords due to the fact that he is the Archbishop of Canterbury, but he's also got one of these special knighthoods directly from the King. Jonathon, it's great to see you in the studio. Hello.
Hello.
What do you make of this?
Not much, to be honest. The King is entitled to give honours to whoever he likes, and obviously I think it's the custom that the Archbishop who presides over the coronation is knighted for their services to the monarch.
That's a custom, is it? That's just what happens.
Yeah, and so I think there are all kinds of things to get upset about in this honours list, and that is number 5,000 on this.
What are you upset about any of the honours?
Yeah, I think it's completely outrageous that Liz Truss, which has been very conveniently sort of swept under the carpet by number 10, who's tried to bury it under the avalanche of all the good news about the worthy winners of these medals and prizes and awards, etc. But we can't escape the fact that a Prime Minister who lasted barely 7 weeks in office and managed to drive the economy into a wall, the effects of which we are still feeling now, and the Tories will not recover from that. That is the main reason. Obviously, Boris Johnson didn't help, but that is the main reason why the Conservatives are going to go down such justified landslide defeat next year. I think we can all look forward to that. And the reason for that is Liz Truss, and it's completely preposterous and obscene that this woman is able to nominate some of her close associates, firstly for honours in general. Sort of it makes such a mockery of the honour system, which is ludicrous anyway. But
I agree with most of what you're saying, Jonathan, but she was Prime Minister of the United Kingdom.
That doesn't matter.
Every Prime Minister gets a resignation on her list.
And that itself is bad and wrong. And Starmer has completely rightly said that he's not going to do that.
We'll see.
And he's going to be... Well, he said it, and he's going to be actually elected as Prime Minister. But look, the point is, it's completely wrong that she has basically given sort of damehoods and knighthoods to MPs who just supported her. It's literally handing out sweets to your friends. You support me, or you gave me a little bit of donation, so you're going to be a sir or a dame. That's
basically every Prime Minister has always done that.
That's not even the worst of it, though, Peter. Yeah, and it's wrong.
Labour's done it.
Wrong.
Conservatives have done it.
It's wrong, whoever does it. But the worst bit is that this woman has the audacity to put the people who helped her drive the economy into a wall or off a cliff into the legislature under our ridiculous, obscene, preposterous system, which is so ludicrous that we ever claim to be a democracy where one of our houses of parliament is completely unelected, which I think we share only with sort of, I think it's Iran or a very, very small number of countries, that we claim to be a democracy and we don't even elect one of our key houses of parliament. But Liz Truss is putting 3 of her associates who helped to drive the economy into a wall into that legislature where they have the right to legislate for the rest of their lives when she lasted 6 or 7 weeks in office. That is a complete mockery of this grubby cronyist system of patronage.
Okay. Well, Luke has been waiting patiently on this. Do you agree with Jonathan, or do you think that Prime Ministers should be allowed to nominate people? What do you make of it, Luke?
Well, I think it's a democratic outrage that anyone can appoint people to the House of Lords. I'm in danger of agreeing with what has just been said. Look, but also I do think those on the left have been reserved about their discussion of democracy. And I do think this is one of the key democratic issues of our time. You know, Labour have come out and said that we need an elected second chamber. I think that's absolutely right.
Will they deliver one, though? Because it always seems to me, Luke, I don't know about you, but it always seems to me that they all say Lords reform, we're going to reform the House of Lords, especially Labour governments. I mean, Tony Blair, in fairness to him, did fundamentally, got rid of almost all of the hereditary peers, but then he packed it with a lot of his cronies, which, of course, Conservatives have done
because
as well.
Because there was a Tory majority before, and Labour had a landslide majority in Parliament. And that was just trying to redress the balance, wasn't it?
Well, it's still an absurd system. Then again, if someone offers me baronetcy, I'm probably not going to say.
Well, it's completely, but exactly. Why would anyone say no? Because it's a very healthy salary.
Yeah.
It's a free lunch every day, transport there and back. I mean, it's a very good living for people who have made some kind of contribution to public life. But it's still a democratic, or some not.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But it is a democratic outrage and it needs reform. There's no reason why it shouldn't be reformed. The British public support it. We know that a majority support some reform of the House of Lords.
But political patronage is so incredibly it's so attractive to so many political people to say, right, we won't need to get rid of this guy or woman or whatever, let's just throw them to the House of Lords. Or alternatively, someone's done something that they voted the right way, or they're given an inducement or whatever, to say, right, we'll give them a knighthood or a damehood.
Yeah, I mean, it's cronyism, and I think the majority of the British public see that it's cronyism, and that's why they want rid of it. There's no reason why this can't be part of their programme. I mean, we forget in 1997 constitutional reform was a key part of Labour's path to power. I mean, the introduction of the Human Rights Act, the establishment of the Supreme Court, this was part of a programme of constitutional reform which made them electorally popular. There's no reason why that can't happen again. There is a way that this can be done. The bare minimum is that these people should be elected. There should be no appointments. There should be no appointments for life. And effectively what they're doing is scrutinising legislation.
How would you do it? What would your system be, Luke?
Well, we should start with two minimum requirements. First, reduce the number of laws. There is simply no reason...
To what?
To a reasonable number that can scrutinise...
Same number as House of Commons, 650?
This isn't that difficult to figure out. It would probably be fewer than the number of MPs, and a number that is sufficient to scrutinise legislation in a way which complements the process of scrutiny which already takes place in the House of Commons. Let's not forget, the reason why people think we need a House of Lords is because the process of legislative scrutiny that takes place in the Commons is deemed to be insufficient. The idea is that legislation goes through that house too quickly, that the committee stage and the reporting stage is too brief, and things go through which should never get through, and therefore you need the Lords to kind of hoover up any problems. There is no reason why the people performing that job cannot be elected, and there is no reason why there should be so many people in that chamber. So those are the two basic requirements: reduce the number and make them elected. After that, it's detail, isn't it? But that would establish a democratic basis for a second chamber, which could perform the same role and which could have some form of democratic accountability.
Although you would need to. I think that one thing that people do talk about in this debate is preserving the primacy of the House of Commons. The sort of sovereignty lies in Parliament. When people say Parliament, obviously that's both houses of Parliament, but primarily the Commons. I suppose that one way of doing that is because you always have the constituency link with the House of Commons, although we should be talking about proportional representation at some point in the next Parliament, or maybe the Parliament after that.
Let's get to that. Let's stick under the Lords at the moment.
I think that the two things actually go hand in hand, Peter, because I think that when we're talking about having a more democratic system in this country, one of the things that you do really easily is a House of Lords. Well, easily, it's certainly easy on paper.
So what would you do? How would you design a House of Lords?
I don't know how. I think that having an election is the
for
basic.
For 15-year terms or 10-year terms?
Well, I think it would have to be certainly longer than sort of the Parliament that we have. It'd be like the Senate, but obviously in the US Senate they obviously have powers that members of the House of Representatives don't have, and so I think that it's important there might be sort of more competing powers, which actually is not such an unhealthy thing in a democracy. We already have the judiciary, the executive, the legislature, which have the balance of powers already. So that would just be another kind of cog in the wheel, I suppose. But that would be a really important thing, and then we should need to think about sort of having a more proportionally elected House of Parliament, House of Commons rather. But one thing that's important is if you have like sort of a system where people aren't necessarily representing an area, that you have a list system in the House of Lords, that would then have a more proportional system in the House of Lords. And
I'm not sure about list systems. I think there's some
if you weren't going to have elected Lords, then at least at the very least you could have a system where each party after a general election would therefore have an accordant number of peers. Something like that.
Let's see what our viewers and listeners think. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. We've had quite a few calls on crime. I want to do that after the break. But just before we go to the break, we've had a little bit of reaction to you, Jonathan. Dan in Kent says, I hate to say it, but Jonathan is right. Only elected ex-Prime Ministers should be allowed to put peers in the House of Lords, says Dan. Someone else, perhaps slightly less charitable, says, and I know you won't mind because you've got a very thick skin, Jonathan, Jonathan is off his head blaming Truss for the financial meltdown. He is a left-wing numpty. So there
That's the nicest comment I've received from your viewers in the last week, actually.
Goodness me.